Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And away we do go. Purple Access. It's Judd. It's Tyler Forness. And it is Ross Brendel. We are, gentlemen, 1 week away from the NFL draft. The first round could be a defining moment, hopefully is, in franchise history as the Vikings transition away from Kirk Cousins to quarterback X to go along with Sam Darnold. Forno, I'm going to set you up with this because you do a ton of work on draft prospects. You watch a ton of film. You've released your top 100 rankings. And we talk about that a lot. I think what we don't talk about with you enough, though, is this. You also, in doing your draft prep and research, talk to a lot of people. Like, it's not just you in a film room. That's part of it. Last year, you brought what turned out to be a very credible report to the table early, which was that at that time, the Vikings were trying to trade up in the draft. It didn't happen, but they definitely, your reporting subsequently was backed up by many others who after the fact came out and said, oh, no, they were trying to trade up to take a quarterback. So I'm going to start you off with this question. In your work this time around, what are you hearing? What are you gathering as far as information goes about the Minnesota Vikings and where things stand for a week from Thursday, where right now they're picking 11 and 23 in the first round?
I'm not going to say it's complete radio silence, but it is a lot quieter than it was last year. And I expect some of that to kind of pick up over the next week or so. But I do believe when you listen back to Quasio Fomensa's press conference from last week and how he is just such a brilliant speaker because he is such an articulate, thoughtful person. And he also tells you absolutely nothing. It's just this brilliant combination that you honestly need as a general manager. Sure. Where Rick Spielman, you could kind of read between the lines. He wouldn't tell you anything, but he would kind of lead you on, almost like that girl when you're a junior in high school. But Kwesi kind of leaves things really there's a lot of ambiguity in what he says, and you can kind of read things all across the board, and you really just don't know a whole lot of what he really means. The one thing I took from it is he's ready for just about any quarterback scenario, and they're prepared to make a pick based on what happens around them, and they're not going to force anything. So my lean is still that it's Drake May. I believe he's the guy. I think that you have, people have made the comparisons to Josh Allen. While I don't necessarily agree, I think some of the mechanical stuff is going to translate one-to-one as far as a development curve, because May loves throwing on the move, and Benjamin Solak at the Ringer, he does charting. So charting is a little bit going to be different than what analytics will tell you with stuff like adjusted accuracy. It's how is the ball placed? Is it placed in a good spot, a very catchable spot, or a spot where the receiver's got to bail you out, that kind of stuff. And he found that he was 4% more precision passing on the move than he was just standing in the pocket. And I think you're going to have to fix some of that pocket work, but the things he can do it's just bonkers. And he can make these throws on the move down the field that are reminiscent of what Josh Allen can do. So that's my lean, but I haven't really heard much of anything other than
so no scuttlebutt about rumors trading up, or no scuttlebutt about where, because I mean, we know, I will say this. You did not come out of the Kwesi press conference with any clue about individuals. You couldn't say, well, it is Drake May for sure. The one thing that I felt, and it's not a surprise, and he's smart enough not to try to lie about this, is they desperately, if they can, want to get a quarterback, and they would love to get into that upper class. Which again, I don't blame him. There's no problem in saying that. The entire world knows that. But I thought that was an interesting thing. And I guess my question is, to your point, are they comfortable with Jaden Daniels, who probably won't be there because he's probably going second to Washington, Drake May and JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix? Are they comfortable with three of those four, but not the fourth? So that's where I think we still don't know. But I'm with you. I do think that they have and I think we both now, Tyler, written about this. I do think that their process cannot be questioned. Like, they have done as much process work as you can possibly do, and it's not like they're going to take one and you're going to say, well, how did you know that about that guy? It feels like the process has been about as thorough as you can possibly be.
Yeah, the process has been really good. And to me, if you have a really good process like that, you're going to end up hitting on one of these guys. And it may not be this time. And the frustrating part about it may not be this time is they may never get another chance, because that's just kind of how the league works. But if you build a great enough team around the quarterback and the quarterback doesn't necessarily work out, you can kind of make things work. I mean, just look at what the 49ers did with Brock Purdy. They kind of just lucked into him as the Mr. Irrelevant because they had such a great team around him. But they also had an infrastructure built up where they had a Super Bowl appearance before that. So they had a little bit more credibility in that sense. So I'm really kind of intrigued, Judd, to see how this is going to end up playing out for the Minnesota Vikings, how it's going to play out once they end up taking that quarterback, because there's so many different variables that we can kind of parse out, because it's just a fascinating thing taking a quarterback. And I'm really excited to kind of see what that looks like.
I'll hop in here while Judd deals with technology gremlins. You mentioned Drake May. The interesting part to me, Tyler, and you kind of touched on it right there, is what if it's not Drake May? What if they don't get that chance at Drake May? Quessy kind of admitted last week, you can love more than one guy. Mm-hmm. So if you love more than one guy, and let's hypothetically say it's Drake May is one of them, and maybe that's love number one, who is love number two? And is love number two, is that a Bo Nix? Is that a Michael Penix? Is that somebody you feel like you can get at 11 or 23 and be okay with that? So to me, that is the interesting part here, Tyler, is if you don't move up, what do you end up with? And one of those other loves, can it be somebody that the organization can be okay with at 11 or 23?
Oh God, if that guy is Bo Nix, I'm going to be very, very sad, because
Bo Nix, we all know your thoughts on Bo.
Oh yeah,
not a Bo Lieber.
But as far as who the lean might be, I kind of feel like it's Jaden Daniels. And I get some of that based on kind of what we saw last year. And Judd mentioned it. I had heard that the Vikings were trying to move up, trade Anthony Richardson. That was corroborated by multiple sources at the time. And it's been corroborated by multiple people who have gone public with it since. And the idea that they were trying to trade up for Bryce Young, well, personally, I believe that was specifically fed to Tom Pelissero from the organization to try and get people off the scent. Like, they wanted Richardson, and they wanted the guy who could be that kind of a difference maker. And Daniels is not Richardson. Like, they aren't not a one-to-one comparison. But what Daniels brings you with the ability to create and the ability to be an elite runner, and that's something that I don't have built into my quarterback rating scale, but I do award bonus points, because you don't need to be a great runner to be a great quarterback. But if you are, it gives you another element to your game. Lamar Jackson isn't a phenomenal passer. He has developed into a very good passer, but because he has the ability to run, it changes things and makes things so much easier in the passing game. So Daniels kind of has a little bit of that to him, but he is not Lamar Jackson. Comparing him to Lamar Jackson, to me, is just pure lunacy. They are not a one-to-one. He compares a lot in play style, and I'm going to take bozo hits because I am Gumby to Robert Griffin III. And I've talked a lot on Purple Daily on Draft, on my own show, The Real Forno Show, about this comparison, because Robert Griffin III's biggest problem was getting hurt, and he would invite it. And Jaden Daniels may not have gotten hurt yet, but he keeps inviting hits that make him look like Wile E. Coyote. That's not good. Lamar Jackson is arguably the best person I've ever seen in not taking hits. That dude can just get 10 yards and then fall and just avoid being touched completely by the defense. It's special. And Daniels is going to have to figure some of that out if he wants to be successful. But I genuinely don't have a true lean on if Kevin O'Connell is going to want that rushing element, if he's going to only want the pocket passer. Because at the end of the day, winning from the pocket is the most important thing. It's almost always going to be. But if you have the element, like guys like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, to win outside of structure, to be able to create when things go bad, that is a massive plus. But all those guys do their most damage from the pocket. That's not going to change. And I'm very curious to see how much O'Connell is going to put a priority on being able to create outside of structure, because Caleb Williams is the best at it. May's pretty good. Jaden Daniels is better than May, in my opinion. And McCarthy is grouped somewhere in there as well. How much is that going to be a priority for him? I don't know. But that element fascinates me to no end.
All of these guys, Judd and Tyler, have some escapability to them. They have, you know, more than the average pocket passer. But who would you say is the most prototypical pocket passer when you're talking about those top 4, top 5 quarterbacks that are likely to go in this draft? Who is the, I don't want to say nobody's Peyton Manning like as far as being a statue, but who is the most true pocket passer of this group?
Michael Penix Jr. And a lot of the things with Michael Penix Jr. is you kind of talk about the pressure to sack rate. And the one thing that's interesting is Joe Burrow had comments about sacks and how not all sacks are bad sacks. And his reasoning was, well, if you take a sack, but then you don't try to make a bozo play that can be a catastrophic one, well, a sack is significantly better than throwing an interception. So it's all about context. And the big thing with Penix is he had a very, very low pressure to sack rate. But when he would get pressured, he would make bad throws and he would make subpar decisions, and those decisions would not pay off in success. So success rate is a very interesting metric. So if it's third down, it's a 0% success rate if you don't get the first down. If it's first down and second down, you need to get, I think it's half the yards to toward getting a first down or getting a first down. So if it's 1st and 10, you need to get 5 yards. That's deemed a successful play. But he just did not elevate when things would start to go awry. But if he had a clean pocket, he'd torch you. And to me, from the pocket, Penix is arguably the best one. But there's so many other elements to his game that really raise red flags and questions on, okay, is this guy ever going to be able to truly be a great quarterback at the next level? Is he going to be a guy who can create outside of structure? Because at Washington, he didn't. At Indiana, he at times ran for his life. But you can look back and say, hey, he's been able to do it. Well, then why didn't he do it the last 2 years? Why didn't we see it? When things broke down in the pocket, why wasn't he trying to utilize escapability? And with those 2 ACL tears, that's a very valid and fair question. And you have to be able to understand that and parse that out and determine, okay, is it because of the injury? Is it because he adapted to because of it, but he still can do it? There are just so many layers to it. And some of those pieces of information an evaluator like me just does not have, because we just don't have the unfettered access that all these other teams do, because they have these conversations with the players. They have access to the medical records. I don't. So I have to go kind of based on the things that I know for sure. And what I know for sure is the film. But because of that, I have questions on it. And it makes it difficult because I can't answer everything. But I would say Penix is the best strictly if you're going to stay within the pocket. But the problem is that's not the NFL game anymore.
Right. Exactly.
No, not at all.
All right, let's move on, because the one thing that we do have access to, as I'm back now, it appears the gremlins that interrupted me so rudely are gone. Comments from YouTube, which are brought to you by our friends at Ugly Deck. Ross, roll that B-roll, because springtime means deck time, and that means it's a time for a new deck from uglydeck.com. Look at that right there. Those beauties. Install or DIY uglydeck.com, offering up to $1,000 off for a limited time. With install, you're going to get the best carpenters. That's right, the best players possible. With DIY, you're going to get the best coaches to help you from start to finish with the project that, if you're watching this right now, is going to give you a deck that looks like that. And who does not want that for spring and summer? Absolutely gorgeous. Ugly Deck, their mission is simple. It's to rid the world of all of those awful ugly decks. Uglydeck.com. Setting up appointments now at their Shakopee Deck Design Showroom. Check out uglydeck.com. That's uglydeck.com, and make sure your house undergoes a great improvement right outside, thanks to our friends at uglydeck.com. All right, Comments from YouTube.
You commented, we read it. Is this a ransom note? Now we're talking about it. It's Purple Access's comments from YouTube.
All right, guys, keep in mind, me reading of a comment is not necessarily me endorsing a comment, okay?
Of course it is, Ross.
Yeah.
That's how
Oh,
it
did
works.
you get that? That's awesome. Yeah, you are, you son of a. I couldn't believe 2 weeks ago when you were endorsing the slander against the Vikings. I was really upset.
I can't believe he was pro Iowa Hawkeye too. It was it was insane.
I'm always going to be pro Tory Taylor, and I love the mocks that have the Vikings taking Tory Taylor. I'll continue to be
Taylor's a star.
at the top of that hill.
Star with that leg.
Should have got Heisman vote. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
At Tony
Oh
Holt,
God.
at Tony Holt 5951 with an interesting thought. I would trade Darisaw to avoid the cap hit and take the first round pick and pick up one of these stud tackles. Now you've got money for Herbert and JJ, another Purple Daily Talker from a week ago. My question to you, if you trade Darisaw, how do you feel about having not one, not two, but 3 first-round picks? And since Judd has decided to leave the show again, Tyler, you go first. The thought of the Minnesota Vikings having 3 first-round picks in the 2024 draft.
You know what's fascinating about the idea is it's like that scene in Family Guy where Peter Griffin sits through like a testimonial or something, and though it's one of those timeshare presentations, and he can either have a boat or the mystery box, and Lois is like, "Oh, we'll take a boat. We've always wanted one of those." Whoa! What about the mystery box? It could be anything. It could be a boat. That's what it would be if you're trading Christian Darisaw. Look, I understand the general thought process behind it, but unless you're guaranteeing me that guy is going to be on the level of Christian Darisaw, it's not a gamble I want to make when I'm going to have a rookie quarterback. And you have the rookie quarterback, you can afford to pay Christian Darisaw a massive extension and Justin Jefferson a massive extension. And I'm not going to sit here and think twice about it. I'm keeping Darisaw, and like, who's going to trade for him? Like, are the Titans really going to give you pick 7 plus to get Darisaw when they could just take Joe Alt and have 4 years of a rookie contract? Probably not. So there's going to be a lot of layers to peel back with that one. To me, the answer is no, unless you get a Godfather offer. And even then, you would need to guarantee that you like enough of these guys to be on the level of a Christian Darisaw to make a trade like that. So I'm out.
My 2 cents, and speaking of out, Judd has texted me and says, you and I should just take it home. So apparently the internet gremlins have chewed through the wires. Judd is out, so it's you and I taking us home. You've pointed out before, Tyler, it takes 2 to tango. Also, when it comes with draft picks, I often think if you're going to trade them, the best thing to do is to be on the receiving end. You want to get the player that you know and you feel comfortable with, which is an NFL player. Go back and look at the Vikings trading a first-round pick for Jared Allen. The only time where I think that's a little bit different is if you're talking about, in theory, landing your franchise quarterback. Then I think you have to be willing to part with those draft picks. Here's question number 2 for you, Tyler. An unnamed user comments. That's literally the username. The current quality of NFC quarterbacks is terrible when you look at how loaded the NFC is with top quarterbacks. Impromptu, Tyler Forness, your top 4 NFC quarterbacks are?
Ooh, that's pretty good. Top 4 NFC quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was doing this when I planned it, and it's tough. And I won't even say, you don't have to give me an order, just who would the top 4 be?
Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford, probably Kirk Cousins, and then either Jalen Hurts or Jared Goff. I'm not there with Brock Purdy yet. A really impressive year, and you proved me wrong in a lot of ways, but there's still real limitations with him. I mean, there's limitations with Goff too, but Goff is so perfect for what they're doing, and he's arguably the best thrower over the middle of the field in the league.
Well, especially with that roster, Tyler. I mean, I mean, I'm not trying to discredit him either, but you're right. He is perfect for that. He is an on-time thrower, and that's what that offense is scheduled around.
I'm a very big Dak believer, and I think he gets a lot of unnecessary slander. So to me, Dak Prescott's the best of that bunch.
But what you just kind of went through, not to diminish those quarterbacks, Tyler, that is where you start to think, if you can hit your home run on your quarterback, you're going to be in really good shape in the NFC for years to come. And that doesn't just go for the Vikings. That could go for a team like the Chicago Bears, the Commanders, basically anybody in the NFC looking for a quarterback. Here's a fun one for you to close out comments from YouTube. At Noah Welch 2931 comments, in the Purple Daily feed, he comments, Tyler Forness, 2 words, Nas Reed.
Nas Reed.
Who is the Minnesota Vikings Nas Reed, Tyler
Oh,
Forness?
it's probably CJ Ham. I love
can
Nas
get
Reed.
behind that. I can get behind that.
Nas Reed, people are saying he is the best player in the National Basketball Association. That's kind of always my running joke because I just love watching Nas Reed. He's got a lot of talent and he's just got that grit about him. And I remember when he went on draft, I'm like, why? And then he went to us. I'm like, ooh, yay. And he's been really good ever since. And extending him was one of the better decisions this front office has made in a long time. But
I would like to try and give you a different player, but I think CJ Ham makes probably the most sense. I'm trying to think of another bit player that when they play gets any sort of crowd reaction. And I'm not
Josh
quite
Metellus.
Sure. Yeah, maybe Josh Metellus, but he's turned himself into, and I'm not saying CJ Ham isn't, but Metellus has turned himself into, I guess so is Nas Reed. Okay, I'm just going to say you're right, CJ Ham and Josh Metellus. Okay, let's take it home with our extra points. I got one that I'm going to throw to you, kind of, and I want to see how you respond to it.
Okay.
But let me fire up our open to make it official.
These extra points never miss. It's Purple Access's Extra Points.
I'll start and I'll let you take us home if you don't mind, because I want your thought on where I'm going with this, because I also don't have a great sense of where I'm at with this. I wasn't watching. I saw it on the X machine. Former Gopher place kicker Ryan Santoso, he is in the UFL with the San Antonio Brahmas, and he was being interviewed during the game, which I do kind of like that the UFL does this. I kind of like the interviews in the game with players, very similar to what the NFL does in preseason. You're not really going to get a lot. Oftentimes, it's more a personal interview than a game interview. Ryan Santoso, and I didn't look this up, he dropped over the weekend. The next day, he was taking his test to get his pilot's license. I'm not quite sure how I feel about my players skiing, snowboarding, driving fast cars, pilot's license. I know we can't stop people from being people, but I know a lot of players have stuff like this in their contract. Now, Tyler, I'm well aware you can get injured walking your dog. You can get injured just driving from here to the grocery store. I don't know how I feel about my players having pilot's license. Those those 2-seat planes, they're called Widowmakers for a reason. I'm not sure I want my football players flying themselves around in an airplane. That's my extra point. Thought on that? Am I being too old school?
Yes and no. That's a difficult one for me. I actually had a coworker who, and we worked together like 9-10 years ago. He got his pilot's license and he ended up passing away in one of those small bumper planes flying from Minneapolis to Duluth. So that hits home a little bit. Great guy. But it's also less dangerous if you if you know what you're doing and you know how to check the plane beforehand than it would be driving a car or snowmobiling. Or Nyheim Hines of the Buffalo Bills last year, he was on a jet ski sitting parked and he got hit.
Yes. Yeah.
And he lost out on a couple $1 million and he didn't even do anything, but because it was technically on a jet ski and it was out of the team facility, he kind of got screwed. So look, if he wants to get his pilot's license, dude, it's the UFL. They're getting paid like $60,000 a year. They're like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, no, and you are right. I think it would be a little bit different if this was Ryan Santoso kicking for the Minnesota Vikings, maybe making a couple $1 million a year. But I do believe you have to let people be people. It's just, I don't know. I just think if there's been a lot of athletes and look, musicians, but also to your point, people in everyday life. So, but whatever. I can get T-boned on my way home in a car and something bad could happen. Let's hope that doesn't happen. And I certainly hope your extra point is a little bit more positive than mine.
It's not. I'm going to.
Okay, that's totally fine.
Listen, the NFL draft is coming. And one of the more difficult parts about the NFL draft from a fan perspective is we all have our favorites. We all develop attachments to certain players. Don't be super upset because they didn't take your guy. Try to understand why they took the guy they did and try to be excited about it, because it's not going to be the end of the world that they didn't take the guy that you really wanted in round 4. And I say that because I have yelled at the Vikings plenty for some of their picks during the live draft streams, because it'll be like, I don't believe that this was a good pick because of this, and this. It's not because I don't have attachments, because I've watched a lot of these guys. But just if they take this defensive lineman instead of that one, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And we're going to be just fine. I am, however, still mad the Vikings didn't try to get Creed Humphrey in 2021. I won't get over that one. They should have. They had 4 third-round picks. Trade up a little bit and go get him.
Was that the draft
where they had 4?
Yeah, and was that Rick Spielman's final draft where we had umpteen 7th-round picks too? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah. Hey, here's a bonus question for you as we close it out. I love reading the work of people like yourself. I love looking at mock drafts. You know me, I'm a college football nut. I love seeing where these guys go, love paying attention to the draft. I have always been a firm believer in, I will go into the draft thinking for the Vikings, there's a quarterback or 2 that I would like. But if it's somebody else, I'm not going to be upset. I think we'll know in maybe as early as a year, but likely 2-3 years down the road if they got it right. My philosophy on draft night has always been, I don't get too overly excited or down with who the Vikings or my favorite team drafts or doesn't draft, because for me, it's the long play. Is that a fair approach for the fan, or should people be a bit more invested? I get why we're excited. I'm not saying not to be excited about the draft. I'm just never going to rip a pick in the moment because we just don't know.
It's a very tough one to parse out, because as I think I come at things from a different perspective now, less of a fan and more of an analyst, because this is my full-time job. But when you look at these things, and they can't be just looked at in a vacuum, I'll criticize a pick based on the information I have now, but we really don't know what a pick is going to be for about 3 years. And that's why I'm even hesitant to bury the 2022 class like a lot of people, because sometimes it takes these guys a while. And you know what? There's a chance Steen breaks out. There's a chance Booth breaks out. There's a chance Asamoah breaks out. There's also a chance that none of them do anything. And it's a hard transition to go from college to the pros. Some guys make it look easy, and it gives us unrealistic expectations. Justin Jefferson made it look real easy, but it's not real easy. It's hard. Some guys are just special, and we have to have that in our minds, that it will take these guys a little bit to really figure out the pro game. And that's okay. I will criticize picks based solely on the information that I have at the time, and hey, they should have taken this guy or they should have taken that guy. But overall, try to enjoy the show. Try to enjoy the puzzle. Be like, okay, well, if the Vikings did this, then how are they going to attack A, B, C, and D? And use it as one of those brain teasers or something that you would have when you were in elementary school, and just try to figure out what the variable is. I don't know. It's a little rambly, but
no,
just
I get
enjoy
it.
it.
My question to you was very rambly, so I appreciate the rambly answer as somebody who can be very long-winded. That would be me. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate that I'll see you next Thursday at the Purple Daily Draft Party, along with the millions and millions of Purple Daily fans at the Fillmore next Thursday. Should be a fun night. Thank you again for doing this, Tyler. And I know we'll catch up. I, and Judd will catch up, 1 week after the draft? And I guess we'll technically review the unofficial start of the season, as mini camps and OTAs will be right around the corner. So we will talk very soon. For Tyler Forness, the departed Judd Zulgad, and myself, Ross Brendel, this is Purple Daily's Purple Access.